G'day listeners, welcome to Bar Karate, the sailing podcast. My name's Jordan Spencer and it's that time of the week where we get to hang out with some really cool sailors. But of course, I have to share the microphone with my two idiot mates. So first up, let's welcome Mr. Brett Perry.
Greetings, exalted one.
BP. We've been
G'day world. G'day world. I made it. I made it to this one, so it's all good.
It's good, mate. Should we do the honorary crickets just to welcome you in, or?
No, it's all good. It's all good. Hey, listen, I'm coming at you from sunny San Francisco at KKMI Boatyard in Richmond. So I tell you what a magnificent yard that is. There's a bit of a plug for them.
Good on you.
So things are going well here, and looking forward to today.
Excellent. All right, we'll get the other guy in.
He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr.
Mr. Nick Bice.
Gentlemen, and nice to hear you've made it there, BP. Been a busy boy over there, which is great. Beautiful part of the world.
Frenetic.
Beautiful part of the world. And just remember, hashtag bring back the rainbow whilst you're there, if you don't mind. This one's for you, Jordan, being the monarchist amongst us, as I know you are.
Am I?
We saw the Queen this week, Platinum Jubilee, 70 years of service.
Right.
So the question being, do you think we're going to get to 70 years of service of an all-for-love job within Bar Karate, the sailing podcast?
It's probably the only thing that'll keep me alive, mate.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, this is too much fun not to do, so yeah. No. Is that it?
It must have brought a bit of a tear to your eye, though, to see everything that happened.
Didn't notice.
I know the staunch monarchianism that you do have, and you've just been banging on about it for years and years. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, that one went like a lead balloon, mate. I want to do something different, boys, with our guest. Normally I give everyone a bit of background before we intro the guest, but I'd like to actually have the guest introduced before we give some of the background. But just to give you some context for the listeners, this is going to be an amazing story. We really wanted to get this one to you. It is an amazing story of adventure and some different viewpoint on the world. So what I will say is our guest wrote a book. He's written multiple books, but the one we're going to talk about is The 5-Year Voyage, exploring Latin American coasts and rivers. Sounds very dry and boring, but I can assure you it's not. So let's welcome to the show Mr. Steve Ladd. G'day, Steve.
Good day to you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Picked up on the lingo already, Steve?
Good day. Am I saying that right?
That's it.
Perfect.
Okay. Steve, I want to preset your expectations with us. So this is a story of adventure and challenge and quite amazing experience. First you need to know is Bicey there is he's raced around the world multiple times. BP has raced across oceans single-handed and double-handed multiple times. And I married a New Zealander. So we're all used to extreme challenges in life. And we just couldn't wait to speak to you about your adventures, mate.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's different from yours.
It's
different from all of yours.
Okay, so let's set the view. So listeners will remember episode 57. We had a bloke by Sandy McKinnon got on, and he got a mirror dinghy and just started sailing from London or from England and just kept going and going and got through to the Black Sea in Europe with no real plan, just sort of kept going. Steve is, I guess, a little bit of an extreme version of the same thing, a much more extreme version of the same thing. A life as an adventurer and a traveller, but you did this voyage with your partner, now wife, to travel through 19 countries, 18,000 miles, and live an extreme adventure through, I guess, starting in Florida, but heading all the way down into the South America, right down to the bottom of South America. So, Steve, what were you thinking?
Well, this particular trip was, as others I've been on, just big but infrequent. That is, I don't go on these adventures a lot. I've only been on 2, what I might call limitless travels, and this was the 3rd and most recent one. And we didn't know what exactly we were going to do until we just got going, and it kind of evolved by itself. What were we thinking? We were thinking, oh, nice to get out of town, quit the job, just no schedule. We had some savings. We got this little boat, a Sea Pearl. It's a 21-footer. It's a little fiberglass factory-made thing that's an open boat, but we modified it. We put a little cabin top on. I mean, really little, just enough so we can sit up inside, and some other modifications. It turned out to be so sweet that the further we went, the more we wanted to go, and we ended up going a lot of places. It was great.
For the listeners, so the boat Steve's talking about, as you said, little 20-foot, 21-foot open dinghy. It's got lee boards. It's got a flip-up rudder. And as you said, you built your little cabin in it. And you've got a cat rig set up with 2 masts, so a cat's sort of set up. So unstayed rig. And it's not the sort of boat where I think, to a girl, I'd say to a girl, I'm interested, let's take that and go for an 18,000-mile journey on. You must be a smooth talker, mate.
Oh, there's that whole side of the equation, which is Ginny. She's in the other room, but not right here. So anyway, I get to speak for her. And we met at a job we both worked at. And we started, our dates were all just like hikes and mountain bike rides and stuff like that. So we're both outdoorsy. And she had read my first book, 3 Years in a 12-Foot Boat, at some point. And so she knew who I was and everything. And then basically she did an ultimatum on me, which is that either we go on basically a limitless travel, like what I did in my book, or tough, she's leaving anyway. She's gonna do one in any case. Do I want to come? Right. And I said, okay, I'll quit my job too. Here we go. So it was really her idea. Okay. It was her idea, and I never had to once like push her along or come on, babe, you can do it, or let's not give up or anything like that. She was always just as ready as I was.
Wow.
Well, that blows my theory out the water, Stephen, of which I thought it was you invited Ginny for a bit of a sail down the Florida Keys, and it took you 18,000 miles to talk her into being your wife.
Well, we did get married along the way, and that wasn't too hard to convince her of.
Yeah, I love it. It almost sounds like you're holding her back, mate. She was the one that wanted to go, so that's fantastic. And we should say that you did that in the 70s. You did all that touring. Steve, I read your book last night, the whole book last night. So, because I'm dedicated to the cause. So don't try and get me to quote things, but I have read every word of your book. And I know I won't work very well today, but that's fine. But in the 70s, you did all this adventure, travelled through Europe and all sort of, Asia, including the whole, was Midnight Express about you?
That was a book about somebody who was in prison in Turkey, I think.
Yeah, in Turkey,
I was in prison in Morocco.
Yeah, you were in Morocco. Yeah, completely different.
Yeah. Completely different. Well, they're both Muslim countries.
Yeah. No, and then so obviously the other book in a 3 years in a 12-foot boat. So it's good that you went for luxury on this last tour. You jumped up to a 21-footer and took your partner along. Before we get into the detail, I have to. There's one question that jumps out to me. You, in your job, are a town planner. Okay, what we call a town planner. I think you call it a civil planner or something. How come you spend so much time trying to get away from towns?
Well, city planner was sort of neither here nor there as to the rest of my personality. It was a suitable job for me to work for 25 years in, and that was great. And other than that, I had 3 male relatives who were all mechanical engineers. That might actually say something more about my personality. I'm kind of in some sense, a gearhead. So At any rate, but I have a wanderlust, and that's another side of my personality.
Well, mad respect for the wanderlust, mate. It is an incredible story. So the thing that jumped out at me, boys, sorry I'm leading every question at the moment, but the thing that jumped out to me was that there was no destination. You just sort of thought, let's just go down here. And then you just kept going, okay, well, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. And that's a mighty impressive approach. That's why I referred back to Sandy for our episode 57. It was the same vibe, you know. It was just like, why stop now? So what was the driving factor? Was it all fun?
It pretty much was. Well, no, it wasn't all. There were tough spots, but I would say there were about 4 decision nodes, turning points, points where we're okay. We kind of done this. What's next? And each time it was, let's keep going for the gusto. Let's do something bigger, better, more. And so each time it was kind of a major thing. Like first we just went down. The first thing we were gonna just go to like the Yucatan and maybe Belize, and there's those atolls there. The atolls. They're kind of like what you have down towards Australia, I'm sure, but they're maybe smaller but significant. And so we got out there and had a great time exploring those, and then let's keep going. So the next kind of turning point was we got down to the southwest corner of the Caribbean, which is Panama, and we had been without a motor till then, but the trade winds push you basically into that southwest corner, and there's no way to go anywhere else in the Caribbean except to windward. And so we had a decision we had to make. We decided to go east along the north coasts of Colombia and Venezuela, but for that we got a little Honda 2-horse, and we just kind of plowed our way through that for all the distance until we're in the middle of Venezuela. Then we decided to jump into the rivers and go up, which was something that I'd heard about. I'd known about that, something that you could do since the time of my first book, 3 Years on a 12-Foot Boat. I had known because I was on the Orinoco then too. So I'd heard about the fact that if you go up the Orinoco, something happens that doesn't happen anyplace else in the world, which is that you go way, 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 way up this river, but then part of that river splits off in a different direction. And so it's a way to just go off into another whole river system, which is the Amazon. So it's a backdoor to the Amazon. You go through the most remote part of Amazonian Venezuela, and you come into the most remote parts of Amazonian Colombia and Amazonian Brazil. And so that was the second leap. And then the next one would have been when we got into the Amazon, but then we turn right, that is upstream on another tributary, and we could call it go over the hump. It was a matter of going up that river, and you get to the headwaters of it, where there's only about a foot of water depth left, because our boat only draws 6 inches, and then arrange a transport. We got a total of 13 transports in South America, and the boat sort of permitted us to do that because it's relatively light. We could just, in each case, find somebody with a pickup truck or a grocery delivery truck or something like that could pull a boat trailer, and they had a boat trailer, and we'll pay you $100 or $200 or $300, and they give us a ride. So anyway, that's over that one. That put us into the Paraguay, and then so then we go down it joins the Paraná, and then we're in the Rio de la Plata, which is where Buenos Aires is. And then the final hump was coming back. I mean, at that point, it was kind of time to turn around. So we came back by a different set of rivers. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what the whole thing was. But it describes the how we ended up going so far, I guess. It was just always wanted to go the next mile,
Hey, Steve, just purely from an operational point of view, I know you said there was no planning or anything like that, but when you're going up the river, I doubt there's any signage to turn right here to go up the Amazon. As far as charts, and I mean, there was no phones. I'm guessing you didn't have many electronics at all. Yeah. So was it just a bit of a follow your nose, or there's quite calculated?
Yeah, it doesn't all it's not all falling off a log or something. Yeah, it takes doing. Like of course each country of South America has a map. There's a map of each one, but there aren't maps that are useful from a navigational standpoint. Sometimes it wouldn't really matter, like this river, you just go up the river. But and then other times it would matter that like there's rapids or islands you have to go around. Sometimes when you're going up or down a river, you'll see something coming in. You don't know if that's a tributary or an island. You can go either way around it, or you can, or whatever. And so anyway, what we ended up doing was, once we got into the rivers, we realized we had to create our own maps. And of course, we had no internet connection or even cell phone coverage 99% of this time. But we would go to whatever town and go to a cyber cafe. We would open up Google Earth. We had this little, what do you call it? Something that's something on top of it that's like an add-on. That's it. And we trace the shorelines. That's a matter of click. It's a vector data that then is converted to something that shows on our handheld GPS, just like it used on a hiking trip. And that's our map, is what we created, because the satellite imagery isn't there anymore, but our clicks are there. So that's how we navigated.
Full on. I'm mesmerised. I got nothing to say. I mean, go
on, BP.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm just sitting here listening.
It is really interesting. A couple points that you'll find interesting. I think one is that when we're stopping to make this map of the next, say, 1,000 miles or so, we're looking at what we're going to be traveling through. Of course, just two-dimensionally, looking down from a satellite. It's interesting. You see all this crazy stuff, like rivers flowing in really convoluted, meandering ways, but you're only looking at it in 2 dimensions. And the third dimension, of course, leaves a lot to the imagination. So you are sort of pre-live it. We'll spend like 20 to 40 man hours making this map for the next 1,000 miles or so. And then we're learning about what's coming up. We're building some mental picture of it, but until you really get there, you have to get there for it to pop into view. But the most interesting part, I'd say, of this was that when we went over that second hump, that is this is a tributary of the Amazon called the Madeira. We went up the Madeira, and then we're in Bolivia, and not too many people cruise a sailboat through Bolivia, but we did, because that river goes, well, Bolivia's on the right bank for hundreds of miles. Brazil's on the left bank. Then you get up to where it's just shallow, and there's a transport, and then you're immediately in the Mato Grosso swamp. Well, the Mato Grosso swamp is about 200 miles by 200 miles, whatever square miles 200 times 200 is. And the whole thing is a maze of meanders and sloughs and cutoffs and lakes and ponds. And it's all like, and the more you zoom in, you'll have to zoom in again, zoom in again, zoom in again, zoom in again. And then you're starting to see, I think we have to go on this one, Well, what if we go on that one? Well, we'd be lost then, So we have to, we're charting all this stuff, and it's taking forever to like represent all these little things. And these meanders are really circuitous, they're almost oxbows. And, but we think it's like a big maze that you're seeing, and you have to keep zooming in to understand it all. But we think we see it, I think that's it there, And so then when we get out there, it actually turned out to be easier than we thought, because when you are in the right one, you're in the right one because the flow is going with you. It's a river flowing through all that. And so you just stay in the flow. And like a week later, we get through all that, and then we're where there's a town, there's people.
I'm never doing a maze with my kids with the same mindset ever again. But I can see where the town planning now comes into it, Stephen. 100%. You've mapped it out. You've drawn it out. You've created your vector charts and what have you.
I've got a totally blown out view of going with the flow.
Yeah. I've got to speak for my wife. She actually was in charge of all that. Yeah. She is I'm an expert on that kind of thing, that kind of computer stuff. So, I really had a good mate in that respect too.
Now, I've been asked this question hundreds of times just by the average punter off the road talking about round the world yacht racing. Do you stop at night? I'm going to ask you the same thing. How'd that work for you?
Okay, the Sea Pearl is very, very, very desirable to stop at night. It's not a comfortable boat to spend the night in. It's extremely bouncy. It's essentially a flat bottom boat. A flat bottom boat, and not wide either. Kind of a narrow flat bottom boat is the rolliest, bounciest thing you can imagine. And so you're extremely incentivized to find rest, and that can of course be any kind of bay or lee behind an island or whatever. And the saltwater portions of the trip, the challenge is that those are few and far between, and you can't always make it to the next one. And so there are many passages involved of overnight trips, and they're all pretty miserable. And maybe about 20 or 25 of them. And then on a couple occasions, there was 2 or 3 or 4 in a row. So those are just something you have to put up with. And you might pretty much stay awake and just keep going, but you can't do that very much either.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask about those times when the conditions were so that the boat was, not really in its, not performing in its element, and you were getting wet, you were getting cold. There must have been times where you go, "What are we doing?" Yeah. The Sea Pearl is, it was very well. I don't know if the boat is dialed in for what we did. I think actually we took the boat and we dialed the adventure into what the boat could do. See, and that is that. It's not optimum for many of the things that we did, but it's kind of in the middle of the optimization charts of everything. So we were able to do all these things. Not all these things were easy or pleasant, but we could do all these things. That is, the ocean sailing as necessary, as there's no way of getting around it, these passages, but then the boat is small enough and light enough to do these portages.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple of things that tie together nicely with these last couple of questions in the book. Is first off, to most people in my mind, when you talk river systems, you think you're just going down the middle and you can see both banks. From reading the book, there were sections of the river systems where you couldn't see the other side. The horizon was so wide, and there was one beautiful line in the book I read last night where you were talking about where you anchored up one night in a cove on a lake, on an island, in a river.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can picture that, that's where we were. And it was a big cove in a big lake in a really big river.
Massive river.
That river was the Rio Negro.
Yeah.
The Rio Negro, in winter anyway, the high water time, to understand how big this river is, at least in that time of year, you're looking down, you're taking drawing a cross section across the river, and you're describing what you see from one bank to the other. You see a channel that's 2 miles wide. Then you see an island that's 2 miles wide. Then you see a channel that's 2 miles wide. And you just keep going on, and there's 10 islands and 11 channels. So it's like 40 miles wide. Yeah. And nobody lives on any of those islands. You can take whichever channel you want to. The islands are semi-inundated. There's no land. The trees are the bottom half of the tree is underwater. The top halves are there.
Yeah.
You have a lot of navigational options. It is really quite fun. You can go right through the forest in many cases. And then when you want to stop for the night, it's actually really easy. You just tie it
up to a tree.
But you have to tie up and then tie up below the waterline of that tree, or have a weight, because whatever's on that tree, insect-wise, will come onto your boat, and you'll wake up and you'll have 3 inches thick of ants over your whole boat.
Well, there's quite a lot of stories to be.
Well, you remember going down the wharf and they have those cones on the lines to stop the rats getting up? Did you have like little mini ones to stop the ants climbing up, Stephen?
Yeah, it was ants were. Once we figured it out, it wasn't so bad. But what else? I mean, we had a lot of things come aboard. We had mice and stuff, frogs. We had bees that wanted to make their nests on the boat.
Wow.
We had these insects that don't even exist anywhere else, so I don't know what to call them. We had everything, but generally speaking, the ants were the worst.
No.
What about civilization? So obviously there's the bigger cities, which you know sort of where they were. What about in the remotest areas that you could that you could think of, and there all of a sudden was a group of people that just looked at you and went, "What is going on here?"
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag, but the general way to typify it is that it's undeveloped, unpopulated. It's not like North America where the Mississippi and the Missouri systems have one city after another after another. No, down there, there are places of concentrated people, but very far between, and mostly it's unpopulated, especially in the Amazon. And so you'll go for certainly a day, but maybe a week at a time without seeing any houses. You might see another boat. It's more likely that you'll see a boat. And it's like the Amazon. We especially like the Rio Negro. For one thing, it's got black water. That's what the Negro part of it means, and it's that means that no mosquitoes will grow because of the tannic acid, which is what makes it black. And there is occasionally a very big city like Manaus. That's like an island of huge urbanization surrounded by all this other stuff. It still is isolated. It's still surrounded by relatively unpopulated waterways and jungles. Then more typically, though, it's these other towns from just a tiny hamlet to medium-sized towns. And then when they are a medium-sized town that has, say, 50,000 people, it's an isolated piece of town. It'll have some cars and its own streets, but no connection street-wise or road-wise to any place else. And but then there are simply occasionally an Indian hut, and we were not we were like just doing the trip. We weren't like studying the Indians particularly, but we weren't avoiding them either. And there's a lot of times that's the people who are around as Indians and or the natives, whatever tribes and everything. And so we just kind of ran into them and intercoursed with them and, chatted and stuff. We met a lot of them, and it was nice. They're
what was their sort of persona? What was their feeling of having someone like yourself coming through their area? I mean, this would be rare, not very many people would do this trip.
Yeah. They're curious and a little leery. Yeah. They're not very talkative. They're friendly, but a little bit withdrawn. Not quite sure. They'll share something with you. They're not at all, acquisitive. There's nothing to worry about. They're totally unthreatening, So I'd say that definitely typifies them all. Yeah. And there'll be some kids there, and you can meet the family and all that kind of thing.
Well, the kids would generally be the jovial, as kids are, have no real fear and not care. They'll just be bouncing around and finding it quite funny, I'll be thinking. Yeah,
they may also be shy, but they're more likely to be a little more outgoing or playful. Yeah. And so there is an occasion that I think I can bring up to typify that. The tribe that in a way is most famous, I think, is the Yanomami, which is a tribe that is famous for its warlike instincts. They're known to be in warfare a lot. I don't think that really is the case anymore, but they're still sort of infamous for it. And so we came to one of their villages, and I think we had some idea that it wasn't going to happen because there had been a reference to where that village was. And there was kids there that you can't see the village when you arrive there, but you can tell that's a place where boats land. And the kids are there playing on the water. So Ginny just stayed with the boat with all those kids. So she spent about a half hour just splashing in the water and everything with all these kids. And then there was a young man there who, this is more like a hamlet. I only saw two adults. So this young man spoke Spanish. They don't necessarily speak Spanish, much less English, but we do speak Spanish or Portuguese. And he says, "Come with me, I'll show you the village." Go there, it's not very far away. And he shows me like a circle of huts, and there's a little packed earth place in the middle. And there's this guy about the same age, about in his 20s, who's doing some sort of a spirit thing. He's marching around chanting and doing stuff, and he's got some things in his hair like feathers sticking out and stuff. And my guide says he's under the influence. He's talking. He's taken some drug, and
mescaline, and
so I don't know what it was. There was the guy. He was sort of zoned out doing what he was doing, but he saw us and he said, here's my box. You can have this. It was like a wooden box with some stuff inside. And I don't know what it was. Something you're supposed to, they said that you're supposed to blow on it and then something comes out. So maybe that means that if you blow on it, some powder comes out and the other person inhales that powder. I didn't even bother to check, whatever it was is a drug that he was doing. And that's how he was getting his spiritual thing going. I was invited, but it was not mandatory for me to participate.
I've got a theory about this journey. BP brings up all the adventures in the remote villages. My theory is that you would much prefer being in the remote villages than into the cities, and the reason I say that is I actually interrupted reading a book on Byzantine history to read your book last night, and where you quote the whole aspect of bureaucracy, the Byzantine bureaucracy that you had to put up with, and particularly, we can do Venezuela as its own separate topic, but I've got a feeling that coming to the cities and crossing borders and customs officers and rules and paperwork were the worst bit of the trip.
Mm. Oh, yeah. You have to be so patient. Like, you have to have vast reserves of patience, It's really a challenge. And sometimes it's just really would make you mad because these people are not nice and they're trying to steal from you, basically. They're saying you owe them this money and you don't really, and they're just going to put it in their pockets. Sometimes that's the case. But down in Argentina is a very different thing. And it's perhaps interesting enough to say is that in Argentina, no, they're not at all. They're not all corrupt at all, and they're not really unfriendly, and they're not mean or anything. But what they do is so irritating that I find it worse. Which is that there's this huge organization called the Prefectura Naval, which is kind of stands for like the naval police. It's not exactly Coast Guard, but sort of, and they've got big offices all up and down these rivers, and each one has like 100 men in it, and they don't have anything to do. So you pull up there and they're all just swarming out. They've got lawyers, they've got all these different officials, officers, they all have epaulets and everything, and they all want to have a big meeting with you. Boy, there's going to be some paperwork come out of this thing. And they say you have to stop at every single post and do it all over again. You have to get a pilot to get to the next post, and you can never sleep anywhere unless you call them and tell them where you are. Preferably you sleep at the post. And they create this paperwork that just keeps getting thicker and thicker, and you just get really tired of them. And so they're called the prefectura. So then the colloquial term of one of those people is the prefecto, but Jenny called him something else. I don't know if your audience wants to know what that is.
Absolutely, they do.
In any language.
Prefectos.
That'll do. Nice one.
I love it.
Oh man, I just can't imagine that. I mean, going to an airport's hard enough these days with customs and people and all that sort of stuff. I mean, just doing it like that would be insane.
But they're friendly. It isn't like they're
but they all want something to do.
Overflowingly friendly, but they're so. They keep saying that, it's so dangerous what you're doing. There's no chance you can even survive the situation you're coming onto. That's bullshit. There's nothing dangerous about that. What's down there?
Was there anything dangerous in the trip?
Well, of course, yeah.
Because it all sounds dangerous.
Well, a small boat, you got like I mentioned about how you want to get into a refuge every night. Half the time there's some kind of surf, like a river bar or something. Those are dangerous. And
So that's
Then
when you're
there's-
at sea. Like that's the thing that I noticed reading the book. I try to talk over you there, but every time you went out of the rivers, but when you were doing all your ocean sailing, every night you're trying to get into some sort of harbour or port, and that was one of the big risks. You know, I thought the river was going to be the thing, but the actual ocean sailing was hard for you guys because you're trying to find. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The rivers were actually very safe and sane. There isn't much can go wrong. You know, It is really just easy and pleasant. It's just ever-endingly beautiful jungle, riverine wildlife. The big animals are on the banks of the river jumping in as you go by, you know, and all the pink dolphins and capybaras and crocodiles and river otters and all these birds, just the most beautiful, big, rare birds in the world. And you're just seeing all this stuff all the time. The ocean is relatively much more serious. You really have to be careful there.
Yeah.
Going back to kind of just backpedaling a little bit. Obviously, this trip, you and Ginny tie the knot and also have a child.
Just throw that in.
Yeah.
So at what part of the trip did
Not much else to do on a 21-foot boat.
Did George join?
Well, we were we were about a month into the river part of the trip, and it occurred to us that it was conceivable to conceive, I guess you'd say. We could conceive, and there isn't any reason why we shouldn't, because it looked like this was something that we could have a baby for, this river travel. And then when we had the baby, or we're about to have the baby, we were about where the 4 countries join of Paraguay, Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. And we had a choice because each of them were really friendly. We met individuals who said, this is a good place for you to have your baby. In fact, I can make sure that your expenses are zero or very little. And Jenny chose Brazil. We had a really, really, really positive experience in Brazil. The other ones are good too, but Brazil probably the best, especially since we spent so much time in the Rio Negro, and then just the people are really friendly. So she wanted the baby born in Brazil, and we kind of planned ahead. We found a suitable town that would be about the right place where we might be then, and she found a hospital in that hotel. That town, and so we got that town 2 weeks before the due date. Got ourselves an apartment, a 1 month stay apartment. 2 weeks before the due date, she gave birth pretty much on the due date. We stayed in the hotel room another 2 weeks, and then continued with the baby. And
on you, Ginny.
It was really interesting part of the world. That town was Foz do Iguaçu. Iguaçu is the big waterfall.
Oh, yeah.
Iguaçu Falls is the #1 tourist destination. That's right where we were.
Right.
Wow.
And that's his middle name, George Iguaçu.
Ah, okay.
So Georgie is 2 weeks old.
He's a Brazilian.
He's a Brazilian with the last name of the waterfall.
Perfect thing for passport selection here. Done well.
He's 2 weeks old. He gets on board for the first time, and off you go. Any sort of concerns with that, or is it just do it? Like the rest of the trip seems to be like, yeah, let's just take it as it comes. And now you've got a 2-week-old boy with you.
Yeah, well, I no longer could count on Ginny being able to do something on deck or something like that. Clearly, she's making sure the baby's not jumping. Well, she's down in the cabin with the baby. You know, it's like a foot up to the companionway, so the baby couldn't even crawl out at that point. But so she's with the baby, and I just have to handle the rest of the boat, which is no problem. There's the biggest challenge was that we would not even think about using disposable diapers because we're not going to throw them overboard, and we're not going to store up 20, 30, 40 of these diapers, you know? So we use cotton diapers, and we're washing them out in the river, and we're drying them on the lines, not really on the lines. Our boat, it has 2 masts, and unless you are sailing, the masts are down, and you're usually not sailing, so the masts are usually down. By down, I mean they're horizontal. These 2 masts are side by side. Each one's about 3 feet above deck, and that's what you put your big awning over, because you need an awning in the tropics. But part of the mast, part of the mast that are horizontal are not covered with the awning, and so that's where we're draping all these diapers. And then I think, made something else to make surfaces and ropes, horizontal lines, like clotheslines. We would have something, but it was really hot and windy often, so they do dry quickly. But he's creating more diapers so fast that they're always more, and it's just a permanent laundry.
Puts another meaning to bunting set up on the boat.
Right, we're going down the whole time. It's just drying the diapers.
Boat with a bunch of white flags everywhere.
It's Steve, we get a lot of people asking for our logo on a battle flag. Racing boats fly battle flags before going out to the race. Sounds like you had your own version of battle flags going there, mate. It's crazy. It's great. Did anyone try and talk you out of any of this? Did in-laws, family, friends? Did anyone just sort of what are you doing? Especially once the baby came along. Did things change then? Maybe.
No, both sides of the family were into it and encouraging and helpful. My mother-in-law especially sent various packages of items needed. Like, as you go along, you realize you need a new this or a new that, and you're someplace where you can't go out and buy those things. And then the mother-in-law also came for the birth and for the wedding. Well, my parents came for the wedding too.
Yeah, in
so,
Belize.
No, very much on board and helpful.
Yeah. It is amazing adventure. I think the question I want to ask you, I don't want to, maybe if we don't talk about the end of the trip, if this is your answer, but what was the worst bit of the trip?
Well, let's see. I'd have to, I guess, mention. Well, there was a robbery. We were robbed at knife point, and my wife was slightly injured. She fought back longer than it was wise for her to do so. She had a little bit of a scratch by this rock that the guy was wielding.
Yep.
And that wasn't really too bad. They didn't get much, and it didn't traumatize us too much. So I would tend to say that wasn't the worst, but that the worst would have been the time that we were trying to get out of the water to a river mouth, and it was a day of about 20 knot winds and a lee shore, so big waves. And we're going back in front of where this river mouth should be, but the bar really wouldn't let us. And not that there's a big river, there's not a lot of flow coming out, but the swells are turning into breakers. And so, but I'm still hoping. And so I'm going along, but staying kind of close, and then a larger wave came. Well, when the other waves are not breaking because you're just far enough out, but then a larger wave comes, it does break because at that depth, a larger wave will break.
Yep.
So it's kind of like the rogue wave that breaks because when the other ones haven't. And so that wave broke over the boat and put out the engine, and then.
I remember this.
I only had time. I just immediately leaped for the anchor and threw it out. But of course, you have to get 200 feet of that line, and then you're really in the breakers.
Yeah.
And so it was not a good situation. Every third wave literally broke over the boat, and it was still about 200 yards from shore probably. And I wasn't sure if Jenny could easily swim through that surf. I knew I could do it. So I said, Jenny, you stay here as long as you can anyway. I swam ashore, and I found help, and I came back. And we got the boat out of that situation with the help of another boat. But it was bad because I was so worried about her.
Yeah, I get it. It would have been quite. I mean, we all grew up in Australia. We used to surf. We know exactly how the surf operates, and so we're quite comfortable with it, and we can visualise exactly, what you're going through and that stress that you'd be going through right there. So, the one question I've got to ask: you keep referring to the boat by its brand, but the boat had a name. It was called Thurston, and I was sitting here last night thinking, I wonder why he called the boat Thurston, or they called the boat Thurston. And then it occurred to me, surely it's the only Thurston time we've ever in Australia heard the name Thurston was Thurston Howe III on Gilligan's Island. That was the only reference we've ever heard that name. It's not that, is it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's named after a cat.
A cat.
And I don't know why that cat was named Thurston. That was a female cat. But my first boat, the 12-foot boat, 3 years on a 12-foot boat, that was named after a cat too. And I'm building another boat now, and it's going to be named after a cat.
Is that the Proa?
Yeah, the Proa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just
we have our love for the Proas, actually. Yeah. So
right on.
We've talked up a bit of pros, but it almost seems like you take purposely challenging approaches to things. Would you think that?
I'm not going out of my way for trouble, but I want to explore the world, and I want the best boat to do it on.
I think it's quite a simplistic way of doing things, but the fact that the boat is so simple, it does create the challenges. I mean, that's probably what it is. It's not a boat. All these types of boats are not. It's not designed like a ocean crossing vessel. It's what it is, and that's what creates the challenge.
Well, I think the way to look at it is that you can just follow coastlines in a sea kayak, or you can do it in a big boat. But this is in between. It's an in between mode. That's what makes it unusual. Is that we're doing. People don't go to the gap in between those modes too much. We're following the gap between the sea kayaker and somebody who has a regular sailboat.
One thing that jumped out at me reading the book was that yacht clubs, we can talk about the negatives but of bureaucracy or crossing borders, but it seems on a whole, 98% of the time, yacht clubs and their members were fantastic. It looks like that they were just, sailors love sailors, and they just looked like they were great to you.
That's true. Very true. Yeah. And in the countries where I might complain the most about the government, seems like those are even the best in terms of the yacht clubs, because Venezuela and Argentina were so wonderful.
Oh yeah.
We never paid a dime anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you do any nights and have a chat about what you've been doing? And did they ask you to sort of do some talking, or you just hung out and met and
social, just gatherings.
Social, yeah.
A drink with them and a dinner with them and stuff like that. No talks given or anything like that.
I mean, part of the attraction of sailing, as we know, is adventure. There's a lot of that sort of. There's a lot of people that live and err on the side of adventure. There, and someone comes along like yourself. I mean, to sit down and talk to someone like you would be a real rush, I'd say.
Well, especially Argentina. We were just like yacht club hopping. One town has its yacht club, the next one has its yacht club, and we were so welcome. That we were. If you know what the churrascaria is, where you eat meat, and these different kissing each other on the cheek. They do that in Argentina. Yeah. So we're kissing each other on the cheek and eating all this meat, and
that's good.
It was always and very very kind of collegial, I guess is the word. Fellow seamen, fellow sailors, and they're just happy to have us, and we're happy to be there.
Unbelievable.
Some of those nations have produced some of the great sailors. The talent that comes out of those nations that you're talking about from those yacht clubs has been phenomenal. Racing against some of those people is quite challenging. So, and also wonderful people. So we've got great relationships with a lot of people in those locations that you're talking about. So,
so Stephen, I've got a question. The Voyage of the 12-foot boat, the 5-year voyage, and a whole lot of other adventures prior to this, which is the most prominent for you, or the all good for different reasons?
Well, just speaking me as an individual, I have gone on these trips that here's the way I look at it. When you're young, you have the most impressionability. Your personality is not set in stone yet. The older you get, the more set in stone you are. So the earlier travels are most distinctive and kind of powerful as a memory. And this is like psychology, I guess now. But because they are so powerful and you're so impressive, you don't need as long of this to satisfy your wanderlust. So my first year of limitless travel, when I was 18 and 19, that hit me down deep, and it was good. And then 3 years on 12-foot boat, it took 3 years to satisfy the wanderlust. And then my last book, it took 5 years. So I don't even know how long it's going to take the next time.
Yeah, well, I've got it written down here, and I know Jordan's the mathematician here, but I'm
What's the
guessing
progression on that?
Yeah.
Is there a mathematical solution to this question?
Jordan's working on the algorithm exactly now. Takes into several accounts.
Well, you've gone 3 years, 5 years, so you've gone prime numbers. So just pick your next prime number as the progression. So
1, then 3, then 5. Let's see.
Or you could take it on a Fibonacci cycle and spin it out.
No,
that way.
but we have to add in the fact it's going to be done on a proa.
Yeah. So everything's 3 times.
So there is an extra element.
Because it can go either way.
Yeah, well,
There you go.
tacking pro though, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We were talking attacking pro in this case.
Yeah.
I do want to. I'm interested. If your travels changed your views on anything. So, for example, what sparked the thought in my mind is, going Venezuela, right? Venezuela, obviously things were pretty interesting in Venezuela. It's a country that its population is suffering, we know. Did anything you see or do, did that change you as a person, do you think? Or you're already down that path?
I was already down the path.
Yeah.
I certainly was, I had my opinions and I was taken aback by stuff, but no, I can't say that I was changed in that regard.
Okay. All right. Well, let's we decide at some stage later on the trip that George is getting to a size that he's got to go home, and so Ginny and George jump off the boat. You want to complete and get the boat back to the US, so you start. Was it around Belém? I'm just trying to go off memory. Is that where
it is?
That's where the split was. And then, so you go to sea. You've got to sail up the Guianas, and then you go into the Caribbean. Effectively, it sounds quite pleasant. Mm-hmm. Just cruising.
Well, the Caribbean part was nice. The first part was very difficult for me. The Amazon Delta is this vast area of shallow water, flat islands, and then well out to sea, it stays shallow. The currents are severe. The tidal fluctuation is severe, like 20 feet. And the way far out, the water remains shallow, and you can actually anchor out way beyond land. And there's fishing boats all over the place, and there's no place to just come in. And so getting through that part was several days of almost no sleep, and kind of scary. Some of the way the currents are going and everything. And then, like really severe currents. Like I would, at night, I would, to get some sleep, I would just take the sails down and just sleep adrift. And then in the morning, or whenever I woke up, wasn't necessarily in the morning, I'd look at my GPS of what I'd been doing, and I had gone this weird corkscrews, 5 miles that way, 3 miles that way, back over that way, 2 miles up that way, It's like really severe and weird swirling stuff, the wind might have been doing some of that stuff too. And so then finally get through the mouth of that. Well, the Amazon flows out, and then because of the currents that are coming from the east southeast and they're going west northwest, the whole current just grabs the whole thing, and it's huge, of course, and turns it and brings along the coast of the Guianas. So everything, all the sediment that the Amazon is holding drops out along the coast of the Guianas, and that's why the Guianas are the way they are, which is muddy mangrove swamp and shallow offshore there too. And you don't really want to go on shore. There is no shore. It's just swamp. Yeah, right. And it's really bad bugs. And there are river mouths. You can go into river mouth. That is a very unpleasant climate, and you can't get close to shore because of the bugs there. So you have to get through past all that. That's that's another place where being in a small boat was a disadvantage. If you're in a bigger boat, you're just going to sail past there and only come in occasionally at a bigger city or something.
Yeah.
But I had to try to come in more frequently.
You know that there's a bunch of people listening to this show now just rerouting one of their trips, just say, oh, we're not going to cut into that space.
Don't go up some of those streams, man. One night I thought, I've been so tired of not being able to come ashore. I've been just staying out and not sleeping. I'm going to come in. I'm going to try coming in and not sleeping just for variety. So I came in and I got myself something that looks nice on the chart, which is that there's a big river, but then it's a little tributary coming in and I can just nose into this thing. Well, I goes in there but then the tidal fluctuation and my mass or whatever, my boat is getting pushed up against a tree branch, when the tide comes back up 20 feet, and then the no-see-ums come in and it's just miserable. Sometimes you can't keep them out because, you have a mosquito net and you also have a no-see-um net, but sometimes it's so hot you almost aren't going to die if you just have the no-see-um net on because there's not enough circulation or something. It's horrible.
God. Oh dear! It sounds so much fun, mate. You really.
The whole thing with the smell of ammonia, because everything is rotting. You can't get out of the boat. You'd sinking up to your thighs. It's horrible.
At least, then it turns into, as we said, the Caribbean, which is quite beautiful. But unfortunately, that's sort of where your trip came to an end once you got to the Dominican Republic. Are we allowed to talk about that at all, or
sure?
Like Thurston she met her end.
Right. Yes. So I suppose you're going to want that story.
Well, no, you don't have to.
Okay.
It's up to you.
I'll just respond to questions.
What happened to Thurston, Stephen, at the end of the trip?
She got sold for $700 to this guy. I don't think he really knew much about boats, but he had $700. And she had no rigging left, and she had no rowing station anymore. She had a motor that we're able to get going again, and so he actually got his money's worth. That was a good deal for him. The hull was fine. The hull was fine.
Yep.
And I had been 5 months away from my family. I could have figured out how to patch things up and keep going, but Dominican Republic is not the kind of place you want to try to import anything into. That's going to be so horrible to try to get things in a country. And a mass, how the hell are you going to get mass, to a place where you probably can't get anything almost, without waiting a long time. So I gave up. It was not a give up. It was like, it was time to just say it was over,
Yep.
Get back to my family.
Yep.
And then from that back to the family, did it take some time then to decompress, to analyze the trip, and how long did it take to then write the book?
Well, within a couple of weeks I was back home, and the story, we had been publishing our story, like chapters of installations of our story in a small United States magazine called Small Craft Advisor.
Right.
I guess it's probably worldwide subscribers, but it's only small boats, and so they have a small subscription. Yeah. And so that, because we had written all that, we had taken the effort to, we both kept diaries, and then we worked together to create these magazine articles, about one every 2 months or so. And then it wasn't that much more work really to turn that into a book. So we finally got around to doing that. There was a big delay between getting back and getting the book done, but there's so many priorities that come up when you've been gone for a long time, so we have done that finally.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was an amazing adventure. I think we've come to the end of our time, but I mean, I guess the final question from me, Steve, is that, if somebody was listening and they thought, I wouldn't mind giving that a go, what would you say?
think that everybody needs more adventure. I mean, especially young people. Any age, but it's more effective in a person to broaden your horizons when you're younger. So I'd especially encourage young people to do it too. Screw the world, screw the man, whatever. Get out there, try something different. Whatever anybody's told you, don't do that. But don't do what the bad guys are doing either. Don't become a criminal or something. But do something that's your own thing.
Nice words.
The motto I try and use is leave the place better than you found it.
Right.
That's it.
Jordan's still working at that, by the way.
I'm working from a low base. So the book is The 5-Year Voyage, Exploring Latin American Coasts and Rivers. The author is Steve Ladd, obviously with his beautiful wife, Ginny, and co-contribution from George in some way, no doubt. I'm sure his smudgy fingers got on some of the pages. Mate, it's been an absolute joy to chat to you. I loved reading the book. As I said, I read it in one night. So, next adventure, please. Ready to find out.
Where can people find the book, Stephen?
I have a website in which lately I've, in addition to my 2 books, I've got, that first big travel when I was 18 and 19, I was writing a diary, but then everything, including that, got stolen. And so it's taken me all this time to realize that I still have something to say about that. These stories are coming out of me, and I've been writing up like episodic stories. It's not the same thing because I don't have the day-to-day detail, but there are parts that are just amazing that I remember. So I'm posting those online, and people can just read them. I've got published pieces about boats and boating, mostly in that magazine I mentioned, the Small Craft Advisor. Those are published articles, but I've got these other things I have a series called Little Known Things About Me. Well, that's because, come to think of it, I've had the craziest things happen to me, and I'm not going to die without those things being told. And so
absolutely,
they're up to 30 something now. They're just, when you read the title, you think, well, that's impossible. That literally can't be literally true. But then you read it, wow, that really is literally true. So take a look. Anyway, my website is Stephen with a PH, STEPHEN -Ladd, LADD.com.
Cool. There you go. Listeners, get out there and have a little listen to that, because that's the way forward.
Absolutely. Check it out, and that's got all the links to the to purchase the books as well. So, definitely worth a look and worth a read for that matter.
Cool. Thanks
Steve,
for joining us, mate.
Thanks very much.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. And I got to say, I didn't have a lot to say. I was just mesmerised. I think it was an amazing story, and I'm sure there's probably 10 more hours we could do. But yeah, pretty cool, man. Well done.
And I look forward to following the progress of the Proa. I was watching all your YouTube stuff yesterday.
That's a whole nother thing. I'd like to talk about that sometime.
Absolutely. Well,
it's at a nice stage right now.
Okay. We enjoy guests coming back and kind of not finishing the story, but using Barkarati to tell the story and continue the story. So, yeah,
it's Proa time.
We actually never asked, Steve, do you actually know what Barkarati is?
I do not. know.
Well, now you go back to find out. So quickly, let's go.
So basically, at the end of a day's sailing, when everyone's standing around the bar telling everyone how good they are, they say, yeah, I went this way, you went that way, I went that way. It's a bit of a showcasing what the day was using your hands at the bar.
I see. Oh, okay.
That's where Barkarati comes from.
Right. Well, I'm not a big racer, so my apologies to your racing audience. I didn't throw out any racing terms.
No, not to worry. But when I was coming up to the Amazon, should I turn right?
Right.
It's all relevant.
Very good. Righto.
Beauty. Thanks, Dave.
Cheers, Steve.
Thank you.
Amazing story, boys. But obviously he was a little delicate around the story about the loss of the boat. I didn't want to push too hard, but basically trying to get into one too many breaking wave beaches, and he lost out eventually. Bit sad, but amazing story. Truly amazing. BP, what did you think, mate?
dedication is a massive thing here. Now, I'm actually going to go away from our man. I'm going to go dedication to you. Did you really read the book the night before our episode with old mate?
With Steve? I did. Here was my thinking, BP.
Now, that is dedication.
Yeah.
Dedication right there.
It was actually 250 pages. And here's my thinking.
250 pages.
Yeah. I knew you were busy, mate. I know, you were busy, right? You've got that X2 you're working on. You've got so much going on. And I thought, poor old BP's not going to have the knowledge and as much knowledge. Somebody had to have the knowledge. And Bicey will have broken down somewhere and he'll be in that stupid car of his, broken down somewhere. And so we can't rely on him. So I had to take the hit for the team. I figured that was the only way. Somebody has to do the prep because otherwise we wouldn't have got some of those sort of insights. It'd be just standardised questions. So, and obviously...
Don't act like you're not impressed.
But obviously... we recorded that, then you had to rush off, and now we're back just to finish this off. And guess what's happened?
Vice is broken down.
Yeah. He's gone out in his little four-wheel drive and he's stuck on a sandhill last we heard. So, he's he's probably better being on the water than...
Insane, isn't it? I'll tell you what, we're busy, but... Yeah, look, but it's again. I touch on it. Dedication, mate. It was impressive.
Yeah,
impressive. And I think our mate was quite impressed too because you brought up some points and he was was like, oh, really? You know about that?
Yeah,
you really did read the book.
You really did read the book. Yeah, it's worth a go. Like if people want to run out and grab it, it's worth a go. So it's definitely of interest. All right, moving on, my friend. Moving on. Club events.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few things underway at the moment, particularly in the US. So obviously in the UK, the British Moth or the UK Moth Nationals or English Moth Nationals are on. So that's interesting. I see Dylan Fletcher's leading those. Very talented sailor, obviously. The Annapolis to Bermuda's on.
Yes.
And then Newport to Bermuda starts the 17th. So everyone's sailing across to Bermuda. So that's interesting. But remember we mentioned, a couple of months ago, a race to Alaska. The race, it's a 750-mile adventure from Port Townsend, Washington, up the Inside Passage to Ketchikan, I think it is, in Alaska. And any form of boat allowed so long as there's no motors. Do you remember that one, BP?
Couple of weeks ago, we had a chat about it. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that starts. Where are we? It's the 12th. It starts tomorrow on the 13th. Let's just say starts on the 13th. I'm just looking. So the website. I found the website. It's really hard to remember this one. R2AK. That's it.
Yeah.
R2AK.com.
R2AK. R2AK.com.
And there's a tracker. So the race is going live June 13th, 5 a.m. So that's obviously US times. Work it out yourself, but jump on the website. But it's about to kick off. So I think I was going to say the Bermuda races because everyone wants to sail across to Bermuda, but I reckon that might be our club event of the week, the race to Alaska. I love it. So that's the one coming up.
We did chat about it, and it does fit into our theme of keeping people on the water and different sort of ideas and what's going on. So, yeah, all right, well, we'll tick that one, eh?
And the adventures, this episode's an adventurer episode, so it's a perfect fit. Jack Lloyd, listener of...
It is. I'm still blown away, by the way. I'm still blown away by that story.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell it or do you want to tell it?
It's just... No, go on, keep going.
All right. We're going to leave
I think I'm... Give it up to you because you're politically correct.
Okay, listeners. Now this is something you can try at home.
I have the tendency to get a bit wild. So go on.
Yeah. So our Jack Lloyd listener of the week sent us a link. I think we'll leave them anonymous just so there's no any blowback on them. They were looking for Antle Rig.
Oh, come on.
I didn't mean that, Jake. Sorry.
That's
They were looking for Antel rings. So, the little low friction rings that you pass rope through, you put into your purchase system, ANTAL ring. And they did the Amazon search. And what has come up as a suggestion, did you mean, is anal ring. BP, what's an anal ring?
don't know, but apparently you can get it in all different sizes according to Amazon.
Anyway, just for pointing that out. So I'm certain a few people are going to jump online and do the search and see if it's true, but it's genuinely true. We've got the link right in front of us, and that is hilarious. Yep. So, anyway. Yep. So listener of the week is the person that sent in that, and we will be sending...
So you can get him in... You can get him in R14s, you can get him in R07s, you can get him in R28s. So, you've got rings the size of 7 mils by 5. You've got rings the size of 28 by 20. You can even get aluminium ones. So, you've got a bunch of them, really.
Yeah, opportunities galore. Hey, no hot topics with Bicey, obviously. We can't really do that. Nope. So let's just go... There we go. So we're feeling hot, but we've got no bice. It's good, our little toy. We can do all that stuff. You're in San Fran. I love it. You're with the X2, bud. What are you doing? What's going on?
Just hanging out. No. Just hanging out. Just living the life. It's been to be honest with you, the boats arrived delayed, as of course, because shipping's like that. That's what happens.
Yeah.
The boat arrived. We got it on 4 days ago, and we've had it painted. We've got everything ready. It's one step closer to launching. So hopefully, keel's going on Monday, and rig's going in on Monday, and full steam ahead.
So you're basically commissioning the whole thing.
The owner's stoked. Yeah. And we're in. As I said at the start of the show, we're in KKMI in Richmond, and it's turning heads. There's a lot of people coming past and asking, "Is this the new Della 30? Is this the?" I just turn around and go, "Yeah, righto." So it's cool. It's cool. It's getting a lot of interest, and that's what we're at. That's what we're about. Just get this boat on the water and get sailing.
Yeah. Because this is boat number 2, right? So the one that launched in Sydney, it's up on the Pittwater now, on Sydney's Pittwater, and I believe it's going really, 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 really well, which is what you'd expected. Obviously got a fairly... It's actually going better than I expected, and better than most of us expected in the early stages. Okay.
The boat's sailing well. It's doing everything we want it to do. Obviously, boat number 1 being boat number 1, there's a lot of things that we had to measure and had to redo and do twice because we're measuring. Like, for instance, we put the electronics in.
Yep.
And then we had to take the electronics out to measure them for all the other boats.
Yep.
So there's a labour intensity that's for a particular boat, and it's obviously a bit more of a process to get boat 1 going, and boat 2 is the next step. Boat 3 will be, the next step again, and hopefully we're at the stage of boat 4 where, it's pretty well plug and play, which is what we're trying to achieve. Yeah,
and that's why you're bouncing around the world with these boats at the moment, obviously, just to get to that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to leave. The owners that have come in this stage of the game, you consider them stakeholders in the project. They're early adopters. They're people that have seen it on paper and understand the boat on paper.
Yep.
And are supporting the project. So I'm trying to support them. That's really where it's at.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I'm interested, my friend. You said it's just been painted. What did they go for? Like, a good paint job on a boat is worth a lot. So, do they go for a cool paint job?
In terms of this boat?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's basically white on white.
White on white.
So we're talking about white on white. It looks beautiful. The bottom finish is glamour. So that's where we're at. It's the boats arrive in standard gel coat white, and then they can do what they want with it after that. So that's up to them.
Okay.
Most of it will be vinyl.
Okay. Cool. Look, it's a cool boat. I just wanted to just sort of get, and with this one being in the US, do you know what sort of program it's going to be doing? You got any clue?
The plan was to try and do the Pacific Cup, which starts in the first week of July. But with shipping the way it is at the moment, and I'm I don't mean to harp on about it, but shipping is a real difficult thing around the world. We lost a lot of weeks with that, and so basically it's now, I guess, more along the lines of the local double-handed racing. It's going to just be sailing around the bay for a while in preparation for some major regattas over the sea towards the end of the season. The plan is there's a California regatta that goes from here down to somewhere down the coast, and so he's got a lot of plans, and hopefully I'm a part of that with him. So good.
Excellent. Cool. Look, I'm super keen, mate. I love the boat, so I'm quite keen to see a ton of them out there on the water for you. So, yeah, good work. The other one to mention this week, we had World Oceans Day. I just want to acknowledge that. Obviously, we've covered a lot of environmental elements in our show. As sailors as a whole, we lead the way on this stuff, so I think we should be proud of it as a group of humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
The level of involvement, and whilst every action counts. Some of it may be minor, some of it's major, but everyone's doing something. We get a lot of messages about it. We hear about a lot of different programs. But so I guess you just want to acknowledge the day. The whole oceans thing started because of sailors. It's cleaning up. All the cleanup stuff started because of sailors. So it's worth it. I did notice. Did you catch this where particularly the Kiwis were jumping in the ocean to have a swim to recognise World Ocean Day in the middle of winter? Did you see that?
I didn't see it, so enlighten me.
Okay, so basically everyone was sort of challenging each other, like the old ice bucket challenge sort of thing. To celebrate World Ocean Day, they'd all jump in the water and, have a quick dip. And obviously in New Zealand, middle of winter, it's cold, right? It's really, really, really cold. And
it's got some cold about it.
Yeah. And so what you do is you film yourself running in. So Pete Burling, you see Pete run in, jumps in the water, and then he comes out and talks to the camera and says, righto, I challenge, he challenged Dan Carter, I think, who's a very famous Kiwi rugby player. And it goes around like that. Anyway, I saw Hannah Diamond do it as well, and she's in the UK, which is the middle of summer, and I was thinking, that's hardly a challenge, but then I thought, English summer where the water might it's probably a lot colder than what I was in today. Yeah. So, but anyway,
yes,
I just wanted to raise that as a discussion. There's a cool thing I want to bring up with you, BP. You've been heads down, so I'm not sure how you would have seen if you'd just seen this at all. But there's they had the California Offshore Race Week last week. You would have happened just as you were landing, I reckon. And it was won. Did you hear about this? It was won by
tell me.
A boat called Pell Mell. So a Seattle boat, Alex Simonis and his crew won the California Offshore Race Week. So what is cool about this, and the reason I wanted to bring it up, and I'm interested in your thoughts, the boat that they won in the offshore race was a renovated 27-foot plywood boat built 35 years ago. So Pell Mell's a Point Bonita 27, built in 87 by Dave Sutter. How cool is that? So on handicap, on rating, but the fact that, they're out there, when you can see cheap boats winning, go on.
This is a sort of the along the lines of where it is here on the West Coast. The regatta is a point. There's like a place to place. So you can win each event, or you can win overall. Yeah. And that's how it's done. I believe it's in PHRF. which enables these types of boats to keep sailing and keep getting results.
Okay, it was PHRF. I just assumed it was.
PHRF, I think, is what they're still racing quite heavily here. But in saying that, it is heading towards ORC, not so much IRC. So but the point is that these types of events are becoming a lot more popular around the world, and this is one of them. And this is being sort of looked at with the double-handed fleet. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah. They've got. I'm trying to think of the green. It's like it's a pastel-y. Blokes, we can't destroy. There's green, and green. It's all, but it's this really light pastel-y green. It's very distinctive looking little boat. So, and one of the crew's got a fairly hefty.
Well done. Well.
So,
Just lost you there for a sec, but well done to them.
Yeah, congratulations. So that's the cool one. I just wanted to bring that up because I have mad respect for people getting old boats and making them go well, and just getting out on the water, because we want everyone out on the water, so that's a good one. The big one though, BP, for today.
Oh, now this is massive. This is huge, and unfortunately we don't have the main man here.
Yep.
For this one.
Okay, what is it?
So how do we go about this? I'm guessing where you're going here.
Okay.
I'm guessing where you're going.
Where are you going?
We're talking about the Australian IRC National Championships.
No, didn't even occur to me. Oh,
no.
I know why now. I hadn't even thought of that.
Well,
that's a good one though.
No, yeah. So I'm not on that path. We'll talk about it in a second, but what are you talking about?
The Vendée Arctic starts today as we go live.
You're always on the bigger picture. Bigger picture than me. So, okay, go for it. Let's go.
Yeah, outside Australia. So Vendée Arctic starts. So it starts Sunday. So if you're listening, wherever you're listening, because obviously we're talking Australia time, so it's early. So it starts Sunday at 5 p.m. French time. Okay, so 1600 BST, 1500 UTC, if that helps you. So it's a 3,500 nautical mile race. So basically out of Les Sables d'Olonne, around Iceland and back. Okay, so all the Vendée boats out and smoking, and it looks like it's going to be pretty good conditions, nor'westerlies or nor'easters, up to 25 knots at times. So there's about 25 Amoca boats going. It's one of the big races, and we're a big fan of the Vendée. So it's live stream start. So if you just want to look up just search Vendée Arctic or just the Vendée page, and you'll find the links take you to it. But yeah. That'll be a good race. Conditions look pretty good. Not sure who's going to be there. I'm just trying to look for the start list. But that's right. Everyone just basically heads up, it's happening. Heads up, race to Alaska's happening. So make sure you jump onto those. And then the start for the Newport to Bermuda on the 17th. Just want people to make sure that they're aware of those things. Let's talk.
And of course, heads up. I see Australian titles.
Yeah. Well, Bice should be here for that one because that is a big one. What's big is, Bicey craps on all the time about Port Lincoln, right? And
the Teakle Classic, the best race in the world.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
Yeah. So
well, it is a good race. There's no question.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome race. Like if you want to do a race, do it.
And a great week.
Yeah, so they have Lincoln Week, great racing. But now that's the IRC Australian Champs next year, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. So I've got a suspicion, nothing is confirmed, nothing been done, but there's a fair chance Barkarati will have some sort of involvement. But if you haven't gone to Lincoln, flat water, like if you're going to be racing, it's very flat water and plenty of wind. It's heavy wind in the south of Australia, like it's got a bit of weight to it. So it's going to be great. Just don't fall overboard. It's probably the tip.
Yeah, don't fall over. The beauty of this particular format, and they tried to do it with an IRC National Championships and incorporate the Sydney to Hobart.
Yeah.
The Sydney to Hobart's just that too big a race to do this.
Yeah.
But what they've done is incorporated the Adelaide to Lincoln into it. Now, the Adelaide to Lincoln yacht race is quite possibly one of the most enjoyable yacht races you'll do. It's 160 miles. It generally starts off in a nice sea breeze, and then you end up opening up as you go across the bottom, and generally finish in the morning with the spinnaker, and so it's a great race.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect opportunity to incorporate a long race into an IRC Nationals. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it is cool.
And the race week in Port Lincoln, if you haven't done it and you are, you've got some time and you've got the ability to do it, I implore you to give it a go. You will never, ever forget the Lincoln Race Week. And now that it's an Australian IRC title, so I guess we're giving it a bit of a pump. But, yep, Icy, we're not going to hear the end of this, are we, till probably the race week next year.
The other thing, I guess, BP, is obviously good wines over there as well. South Australia is renowned for producing... And not bad seafood, apparently. Probably some of the best seafood in the world comes out of there. So if you're into seafood and wine and sailing, you're probably sorted pretty well. Worth the time.
I'd say so.
And
just a quick one. A quick one. It's actually probably the only place in the world that tuna has its own airline.
Yeah. It does. It's true. It's very true. They fly all that.
So a tuna can be taken out of the water, bypass customs, and go straight on a plane straight to Japan.
That's it. Yeah, that absolutely does happen. It'll be a good one, I guess, worth having a go. Baccarat will likely be there involved. And, so plenty happening this week, mate. It's been full bore, hasn't it?
It has been full bore. It's exciting. I'm actually really loving what's going on in sailing at the moment. There's so much going on. It's almost too hard to cover.
It's great, isn't it? It's what we want. Big thanks to Steve Ladd for coming on the show, and his wife Ginny creating that amazing adventure. We were a bit awestruck by the whole thing. 5-year voyage exploring Latin American coasts and rivers. Not the greatest and most exciting book title, but it clearly states what it is. So the 5-year voyage. All good. Anything else from you, BP?
All good. No, mate. As you alluded to earlier, I am head down. I'm flat out, so I'm sorry that I'm sort of in and out a bit at the moment. But you know how it goes. We'll keep pushing and we'll keep making it happen.
Good man. Good luck. Best of luck with it. Did you take your guitar across?
No, but I've been to a couple of new friends and just happened to find a couple of guitars and I've ripped out a couple of numbers, so it's all good.
What about this one? Have you heard this one before?
All right, get it going. See you later.
See you, buddy. See you, everyone. Thanks for listening.
See you later.
That's the bit where you really go crazy, BP.